And thanks for listening to the Ketogenic Fasting Project once again. Today's video is a very personal one. This one's about the people I knew that suffered and maybe would have benefited greatly from some of these ideas that come from eating a higher fat or even a higher protein diet. This first slide here is a picture of my grandmother on the left and my mother on the right. They both could have directly benefited, I think, knowing what I know now, because my grandmother died of Alzheimer's. And if anybody who's witnessed that knows just how terrible that is. And then my mother, she fought breast cancer for 25 years, but she also battled obesity for many decades. So this is a much more personal story, and I'm going to talk about what happened to people I know and how I think a better diet might have helped them. My friend Brad, somebody I met at school, somebody everybody loved. It's a great all-around guy, very even-tempered, very smart. He was one of the youngest city managers in probably the history of California, if not the country. Very athletic, clean living, didn't smoke, didn't do any drugs, hardly ever drank. And he died of a rare cancer called a chordoma. We could get into where a chordoma supposedly comes from and all that, and I don't know that the diet would really have an effect on that, but the Warburg effect might. If you've ever seen anybody go through a long battle with a metastatic cancer, yeah, many surgeries, many radiation exposures, many cycles of chemotherapy, you know how devastating it is and how it's basically just eating away at a person. And to see a great person like him suffer, man, if it could have done anything to make it easier for him, or obviously cure the cancer, it would have been an enormous thing. And I think that the high-fat diets, when you are able to deprive cancer cells of glucose, and you're able to leverage that Warburg effect, because the cancer cells typically depend much more heavily on blood glucose and are not able to metabolize fat very well or at all. And a lot of chemotherapies go better for people. They suffer less symptoms when they're on a ketogenic diet. And of course, this is nothing I had ever heard of at that time, and I doubt he or anybody in his family had. So anyways, what I know now, it's kind of bitter because people like him suffered so long and so hard, and things might have been different had we known. Shortly after Brad passed, a friend Rick Ramirez passed. He suddenly got kidney cancer, and the doctors, from all I know, said they had no idea why it happened. Um, and again, a Warburg effect might have made a big difference. It also, a different diet might have prevented a cancer like this, but he didn't have to suffer quite near as long as Brad did. But still, it's a shame. He was a very bright guy. He was very athletic, clean living. I don't really think he ever smoked. I don't think he drank that much. He was very active. Both him and Brad were quite athletic, more athletic than I ever was. So it's a shame that people that live well and are active and healthy otherwise are stricken with these cancers. And I would like to see what would happen if they were on a ketogenic diet or a carnivore diet or zero carb or even low carb or even whole food, see what that impact would be on them. This is my grandmother when she was a bit younger, well before I was born. She suffered her whole adult life, as far as I know, with arthritis. She had some rather lumpy looking knuckles in her hands, and I know she took painkillers for that. And like I mentioned, she died of Alzheimer's, and uh, when you're family and you're around, you get to witness that slow descent into madness, and it's a horrific thing. And I know at the time they were talking about how this is one of the fastest growing medical diseases, or all diseases are medical, I guess, but one of the fastest growing diseases, and the care for these people is very expensive because um, they uh, they often live for quite a while, and they need constant care because they no longer have their mental faculties. So a lot of people are likening Alzheimer's and other types of dementia to type 3 diabetes, or diabetes of the brain. So naturally, uh, low carbohydrate, high fat, high protein diet might very well uh, be corrective or preventative in this case. And I know there's, millions of people out there witnessing this right now. So hopefully somebody out there can give it a try. I hear about tests with giving people MCT oil, coconut oil, and stuff like that, and it making an improvement. In fact, I know somebody that I met recently. This gentleman was about 58 when he was struck with dementia, and he is now on a ketogenic diet and also going for hyperbaric oxygen treatments, and he's made a dramatic recovery. So whether it's just an experiment of N1 or anecdotal, however you want to look at it, it's something. And it's a nice step in the direction of medicine being democratized. Instead of everybody sitting around waiting for randomized control studies to happen while, millions of people suffer and die, people are taking it in their own hands to try these reasonable measures to see if they have an impact. And we see over and over again that they have dramatic impacts, and they replace expensive and symptom generating medications oftentimes. So instead of people having side effects from medication, they're changing their diet or going to, like I've gone to cryogenic treatments, and this gentleman's going to hyperbaric treatments. They're relatively affordable, they're relatively accessible, and they can have amazing impacts on people who are suffering. Now, my mother, unfortunately, she was overweight from the time I was a little kid. I don't remember her not being overweight. And she suffered from all kinds of problems. She had foot and especially knee problems because of her weight. She slipped and fell one time and banged herself up pretty good just stepping on some seed pods when she left the office one day, which eventually led to her being more or less disabled. And then she had breast cancer, which eventually metastasized. And there was surgery, there was radiation, there was chemotherapies ongoing for 25 years, and in the end she died of pneumonia. And if you look at the cycle of what happened, I think the diet not only contributes to the cancer, which in this case was one of the estrogen driven cancers, breast cancers, but also the fact that she had acid reflux, or GERD, which would affect her when she's sleeping. So she aspirated stomach content or stomach acid at night, which gave her asthma, which led to her being put on inhalers and acid blockers, which more than likely contributed to her contracting pneumonia that was lethal within a matter of a day or two. So she decided she was having trouble breathing. We took her to the hospital, and within, say, 48 hours, she didn't have enough lung capacity to sustain brain activity with the maximum amount of oxygen they could provide in a hospital. So the collapse was very, very rapid. And after surviving cancer for 25 years and all that, you got to look at it and go, well, I know personally, and I know a lot of other people claim that their heartburn, acid reflux, and GERD goes away when they get on one of these diets. So that right there might have saved her life. And then if you factor in the Warburg effect, and also the fact that estrogen levels tend to go back to normal because a lot of times when women hit those postmenopausal ages, their progesterone levels go down and then their estrogen levels rise to compensate. So if you have a cancer that's propelled by um, um, estrogen levels and you lower them, there's a good chance that the cancer won't be as aggressive. So you couple the factors of acid reflux going away, the protective qualities of a ketogenic diet on people who are going through chemotherapy, the regenerative effects of a higher protein, higher fat diet, it all snowballs into somebody having a better chance of surviving or not even getting the cancer. But, my mom died before I even knew of any of this. So, anyways, that's one more person who might very well have been helped. Now, my coworker, or longtime friend here at work, she died of esophageal cancer. She did her best to take care of herself. I mean, she worked out. I know she went to Weight Watchers. She tried to eat the correct diet, but by the time she knew she had the cancer, it was really bad. There was probably nothing to be done for it. But again, low carbohydrate diet. She had problems with acid reflux slash heartburn slash GERD. She had to take medication for that, and it was bad. She also had problems with constipation, and all these things can contribute to esophageal cancer. And her cancer came on so fast and was so aggressive that by the time they tried to go in and take a look, they couldn't even get a scope down her throat. And the tumor had engulfed her esophagus and her aorta. So, at that point, there was little they could do for her. But had she known about these diets, I think she would have tried them, because she was that kind of person that was motivated to make changes and try and feel better, control the weight, the body fat, and she worked at it. She worked at it very, very diligently, and to see her go down like that was just horrific. Now, my friend Bob, I didn't really talk to him about being in this video, so I'm not going to give his last name. But Bob is alive and well. But he did have neck cancer. He did have a battle with neck cancer, and it's been very tough on him. I know someone else who had a similar type of cancer and had to have surgery and radiation and chemotherapy. And when people have neck and mouth cancers like this, they typically aren't able to eat, and that is very hard for them. They can't taste food. They often have dry mouth. They often have sores in their mouth. And so you're an adult who's been eating every day of your life, and then all of a sudden you can't eat anymore. And it's very difficult. You're being fed through a tube. A lot of times you can't talk, or you can barely talk, and you have all kinds of side effects, and it's a miserable thing. And I think that if he had known about this beforehand, he might have had a chance. I know it's tough for people to change what they eat and they love what they love, but with proper preparation and ideas in your head, you can learn to like different things. So, man, I'm sure if you know Bob and you talk to him about how tough this has been on him, I'm sure you'll see where I'm coming from. Because at the very least, the Warburg effect and the high fat diet might have helped him through the chemo, might have fought off some of the cancer cells, or if you're on the diet long enough, it might have prevented it. So hopefully we'll know more about this in the future. And then friend Anna, she's been battling breast cancer. She's just coming to understand the ketogenic diet and getting into it, and hopefully it'll help this from coming back, because unfortunately most cancers, they come back eventually, and oftentimes in another form. Like my mother, she basically had metastatic bone cancer, and they spent, decades chasing down lesions that cause pain and irradiating them, and then giving her more chemo and sometimes doing surgery and so on and so forth. So it's one thing to beat cancer, and I know she has similar type of cancer my mother had, and my mother was, after 25 years, was alive and well, and succumbed to pneumonia. So, and my mom, Anna's doing this 25 years after my mom, so the medicine has gotten better. The pharmaceutical companies aren't dietitians that are supposed to tell us what to eat, but they do come up with medicines that help fight cancer and help you feel better while you're fighting cancer. So I know she's got a better chance, and I'm got my fingers crossed that coupled with a better diet and better information that she'll be with us for the next 100 years. Now I have some friends that I didn't even ask if they wanted to be talked about in this video, so they're going to stay anonymous. I think the problem typically for most people on any diet is that it's tough to make that adjustment to change how you've been eating for decades. But they have seen noticeable improvements with their type 2 diabetes, their need for insulin. They see their A1C number coming down. And as they learn about the ketogenic diet and start working it into their life, they feel better. They feel better, the numbers are better, and they need less medication. So good luck to you, and stay with it. Keep the faith and keep learning. There's more than just joining a Facebook group or watching a couple videos. Stick with it. Make sure you get through the books and read them. And anonymous number two, I think he's just kind of becoming aware of this, but he's skeptical, and I understand the skepticism. When I first heard about it, I thought it was ridiculous too. And it wasn't really until I got into all the historical evidence that I thought there was even some real case for this being anything but a fad diet. But it makes sense that if you stop eating carbohydrates, your blood sugar goes down. And when you really look into it, you don't really have a need for carbohydrates. Your body will make whatever glucose you need. And there really isn't very many types of cells in the body. In fact, there's only one that I know of that requires any glucose. So let your liver regulate which your body needs and stop putting it in and see what happens. Anybody can do this experiment. Get that A1C down. Stop jamming all that insulin in you. And I think you'll be healthier. I think you'll feel better. I think if you could just keep learning about it. I know it's tough. I know you're busy. I know you work, you volunteer, you go to school. I know it's tough, man, but if you don't have your health, you don't have anything. Besides, we just reconnected after all this time, and we gotta live long enough to find some time to hang out. So my message for everybody, of course, stay enthusiastic, keep learning. Don't be that person who does not really understand. I mean, I talk to people all the time who have this very superficial understanding of things, and that's okay for most things, but when it comes to your health, when it comes to all the information that's coming out, you know, it's your health, right? There's more and more information. There's more and more studies being done. There's more and more people having success. So don't ignore that. Don't let anything be reduced to a headline, a bumper sticker, or a soundbite. This is not a fad. This is thousands, maybe millions of people turning things around. And what is more important than your health? So anyways, everybody, please subscribe. Please give me a like on my video. Please tune in for the next one. Please share the links. And I hope everybody feels a little bit better and lives a little bit longer. All right. Thanks again.